Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a magnifying glass to a really big one, the pharmaceutical industry. We're diving deep into this idea of Pharma 4.0, the whole transformation promised by artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But our mission today, it isn't really about the cool algorithms themselves, is it?
No, not directly.
We want to move past the initial buzz, the hype, and really zero in on the actual measurable value, the dollars and cents AI is delivering.
Yeah.
Or maybe more importantly, the value that's being left on the table.
And that potential is, well, it's truly monumental, but it comes with huge challenges, really specific to this field because it's so heavily regulated.
Okay.
AI is rapidly shifting. It's less a futuristic idea now and more of, well, an operational necessity for survival, for speed, for compliance.
Right.
But here's the paradox, and our sources really highlight this. Despite that clear need, a pretty sobering number, 42% of AI projects, they just fail to meet their expected ROI.
42%, wow.
Yeah. So we really need to figure out, where does that potential just evaporate, especially during scaling? And maybe what are the companies doing differently, the ones succeeding, to actually capture that full prize?
And when you say prize, we're talking about some truly transformative figures here.
We really are.
Reports are estimating what AI could unlock up to $254 billion in annual operating profits for the global pharma sector.
Yeah.
By 2030.
That's the number, yeah. And it's not just, tweaking a few spreadsheets.
Right.
This is fundamentally reshaping the economics of developing drugs. The projections suggest that innovative companies, the ones who get this right, could realistically double their operating margins.
Double. From the current average, like 20%.
To over 40%.
That's incredible.
It is. But let's maybe unpack that $254 billion a bit, because it doesn't all just land in R&D. That's what usually gets the headlines, right?
The discovery part.
Exactly. But the opportunity, it's actually spread across four main value pools.
Okay.
The single biggest slice, accounting for 39% of the total, that's $100 billion. $100 billion.
It's concentrated in manufacturing and supply chain optimization, basically operations.
Interesting. So not the lab coats necessarily?
Not primarily, no. After that, you've got R&D acceleration, that's 26%, so about $66 billion. Then commercial and marketing optimization at 24%. $62 billion. And finally, enabling functions picking up the last 11%.
Ah.
What's really fascinating about that breakdown is it suggests companies might be, focusing too much on the sexier discovery side when the biggest, most immediate financial engine is actually fixing basic operational issues.
That's a really critical insight. Okay, but let's still look at R&D for a moment, because even if it's only 26% of the prize, the speed gains there sound, well, staggering.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking AI potentially slashing the time for initial drug discovery from maybe 6 years down to just 1 year in some cases.
That's the potential, yes. A 25% acceleration overall is a common target.
Do we have a solid example? Like, how much faster is this actually making things for a company right now? We do. Look at in silico medicine. They used AI for discovery, and they reached phase 1 clinical trials in 50% less time.
Half the time.
Half the time compared to traditional methods. That's half the cost, half the time for that really complex upfront work.
Oh.
And then when you move out of the lab into clinical trials, the efficiencies just keep coming.
How so?
Well, AI is driving huge gains by streamlining things like patient recruitment, which is always a bottleneck, and enabling better remote monitoring. This can yield up to 70% cost savings.
Yeah, 70%.
And cut the overall trial duration by potentially 80%. Those kinds of improvements fundamentally change the multi-billion-dollar cost of bringing a drug to market.
Okay, let's swing back to that biggest chunk then, the $100 billion operations pool. This is where Pharma 4.0 really comes alive, right?
Yeah.
How are companies using AI to manage the actual physical making and moving of drugs?
Yeah, it's all about moving from being reactive fixing things when they break to predictive excellence. So in manufacturing, you've got real-time analytics, AI systems predicting equipment failures before they happen. This can cut unplanned downtime by up to 50%. That's the core of smarter manufacturing.
50% less downtime. And what does that mean in dollars?
Well, you have to look at a metric called OEE, overall equipment effectiveness.
Right.
The industry average is, frankly, shockingly low, around 37%.
37? That sounds terrible.
It is. World class is closer to 70%. So for listeners maybe not steeped in manufacturing metrics, that's almost doubling your useful production time.
Wow.
Making that jump from 37% to 70%, That alone can yield $15 million to $21 million annually for just one mid-sized facility.
Just one facility.
The financial impact is immediate and very tangible.
And it's not just inside the factory walls, right?
Yeah.
Pharma supply chains are notoriously complex. Global distribution, temperature controls.
Exactly. Super complex. So we see companies like Novo Nordisk using AI-powered demand forecasting to navigate all that.
And the results.
They achieved a 50% reduction in forecast errors and a 26% improvement in overall efficiency.
Okay, so that means less waste, fewer shortages.
Precisely. It's the difference between critical medicines expiring on a shelf somewhere or patients facing a shortage because you didn't predict demand correctly. It's crucial.
Now, before we get into the implementation hurdles, because there have to be some, we should probably touch on generative AI, Gen AI. We often think of it as just, chatbots.
Right, like ChatGPT.
But how is it speeding up the core science in pharma?
Oh, it's a genuine force multiplier there, too. It's being used for really complex tasks like compound simulation.
Simulating molecules.
Yes, and predicting the best ways to actually synthesize them in the lab, the fastest, safest chemical pathway to make the molecule you discovered.
Okay.
And then on the other end, it's automating huge amounts of regulatory documentation, stuff that used to take teams of people months to write.
So it's tackling both the highly creative scientific prediction and the super tedious paperwork.
Exactly. Simultaneously.
Okay, so we painted this picture. Huge opportunity, $254 billion. Investment is set to surge maybe 600% by 2030.
That's the projection, between $4 billion and $25 billion in new investment.
Which makes that 42% failure rate we mentioned even more frustrating. Why? What are the sources saying about why this potential just doesn't materialize at scale?
Well, surprisingly perhaps, the failure is rarely the algorithm itself. The core AI tech is often pretty good.
So it's not the AI's fault?
Not usually, no. Our sources pretty much universally point to what they call the data foundation crisis.
Data. Always data.
Always data. Everyone wants to jump to the shiny AI model, but the boring reality is that data preparation takes up something like 80% of an AI project's time in pharma.
80%. Just getting the data ready.
80%.
So we're talking about trying to feed this advanced AI with data that's stuck on paper or in totally separate computer systems. Old legacy stuff.
That's exactly it. Scattered across paper records, disconnected departmental silos, ancient databases. And in pharma, this isn't just an internal IT headache. It's a massive compliance risk.
Right, because the data has to be perfect, auditable.
Precisely. That lack of data integrity, that fragmentation you mentioned, it's actually dangerous. Get this. Over 25% of FDA warning letters issued since 2019 specifically cited data accuracy problems.
A quarter of them.
Yeah. So if your input data is fundamentally flawed or you can't prove where it came from, no AI model, no matter how sophisticated, can give you reliable, compliant recommendations. Garbage in, garbage out, but with regulatory consequences.
Which brings up this critical difference you hinted at earlier, generic AI versus pharma native AI. Why do regulations like FDA's 21 CFR Part 11 or the EMA's new Annex 22 create such a clash for traditional AI models?
Yeah, it boils down to stability and trust. AI developed for, say, finance or retail often relies on rapid iteration, continuous learning. The model changes all the time.
Okay.
Pharma, though, is governed by stringent GXP good practice regulations. Think good manufacturing practice, good laboratory practice.
Right.
These demand absolute stability and total explainability. When you validate a manufacturing process or approve a drug batch based on an AI suggestion, you have to know exactly why the system made that recommendation.
You need to be able to trace it back.
Completely. The model has to be stable, often called frozen, and fully traceable. FDA Part 11 mandates audit trails, validation. Annex 22 demands transparency in how you assess the AI's credibility. A generic AI that just changes its mind constantly based on new data. It simply can't meet those rules.
Unless it was designed that way from the start.
Exactly. Purpose-built to embed compliance from day one. That's pharma native.
Okay, so the technical foundation is data and compliance. Then the second huge barrier seems to be, well, people. User adoption.
Yes, hugely important.
We learned that a staggering 80% of healthcare AI projects fail to scale beyond the pilot phase. 80%. Because people don't adopt them.
That's the number. It's a classic organizational change problem, isn't it?
It sounds like it. You can spend millions on a technically perfect solution.
10 million. Easy.
But if the actual scientist or the quality manager on the factory floor doesn't trust it enough to put their signature on the output,
then that solution is instantly worthless. Dead in the water.
Why don't they trust it?
Well, the tools might be technically sound, but maybe they don't fit the existing workflow. how chemists or clinicians or the ops teams actually do their jobs day to day. If it's clunky or unintuitive, it gets abandoned. And then there's deeper cultural resistance. Experienced professionals might feel that using a new AI tool introduces some kind of compliance risk they don't understand.
Or maybe fear for their jobs.
Yeah.
Or losing control.
Absolutely. Fear of job displacement, loss of autonomy, I'm just executing what the computer tells me. Or genuine concern that the change itself carries risk. Without really strong, authentic change management, these expensive tools just sit idle. And that $254 billion opportunity stays locked up.
Okay, so to get past that 80% failure rate, to actually scale this, we need a strategic roadmap. What separates the winners, the ones who scale successfully, from the laggards stuck in pilot hell?
Our sources point to two main imperatives. First one, pharma native architecture. We just talked about this. Stop trying to force-fit generic tools.
Right.
The successful companies embed compliance, traceability, validation, what some call regulatory by design, right from the very beginning.
Got it.
And we see this working. There are examples like facilities run by J&J in Malund or Cipla in Indore. They achieved really world-class results because their AI and machine learning systems were specifically built for pharma complexity. They handle things like predictive maintenance within the strict GXP constraints.
Okay, so build it for pharma from the ground up. What's imperative number 2?
Human plus machine synergy. This tackles the fear factor directly.
Augmentation, not replacement.
Precisely. The goal has to be augmenting human expertise, not trying to replace it. And this is why explainability is absolutely non-negotiable.
So the human expert can see why the AI suggested something.
Exactly. The AI recommendations have to be interpretable, so the experts, the scientists, the engineers, the quality folks can validate the suggestions, understand the reasoning, and feel comfortable signing off.
And then they can focus on higher level stuff.
Right. When AI handles the repetitive analysis or data sifting, the human experts are freed up to focus on the higher value strategic work that really needs human judgment and experience.
Makes sense. But achieving that synergy, that sounds like a big organizational lift.
It is. It means treating change management not as some HR afterthought, but as a core strategic imperative.
So training, upskilling.
Definitely. Upskilling existing teams in, digital fluency, basic data literacy, and crucially breaking down those rigid departmental silos that plague big pharma. You need cross-functional teams working together.
And leadership has to drive that.
Absolutely. Leadership has to champion this cultural shift visibly and consistently.
You also mentioned earlier that success really needs to start with finance. You can't just promise efficiency. The business case needs to be solid.
Rock solid. You need rigor.
What kind of financial guardrails do successful projects use?
They define hard metrics upfront. Look for targets like a specific internal rate of return, the IRR, that's basically the project's annual growth rate, typically aiming for 18% to 24%.
Okay.
They also demand a conservative payback period, usually 3 years or less. And this is critical. They explicitly cost out the necessary risk mitigation. Things like ensuring the tool is fully GXP compliant from the start.
So budget for compliance, don't just hope for it.
Exactly. If the numbers don't add up under that kind of strict scrutiny, the project probably shouldn't even start.
That discipline leads to something called the balanced portfolio approach. What's that about? It sounds like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
That's basically it. If every AI project is a high-risk 5-year moonshot, the organization just burns out or loses faith when things inevitably hit delays.
Right.
So you need a mix. Combine visible, quick wins projects that deliver clear value within, say, 12 to 18 months.
Like predictive maintenance, maybe?
Exactly. Predictive maintenance, or maybe optimizing job shop scheduling to cut equipment changeover times by 30% plus, those kinds of things.
Okay.
You combine those with the bigger transformational changes that do need that 3 to 5 year horizon, like the full drug discovery acceleration we talked about.
So the quick wins build momentum and trust.
Precisely. You use those fast, certain wins to build confidence, prove the value, and frankly, secure the ongoing investment needed for the bigger, longer-term shifts.
Okay, final stretch. Let's bring this back to the leaders listening, the decision makers.
Wow.
What are the key metrics they should actually be tracking to make sure this value is being realized, not just talked about?
Good question. You need clear KPIs.
Hmm.
Obviously, OEE improvement in manufacturing, time to market reduction for R&D. You want to track error deviation rates, aiming for maybe an 80% reduction there.
Okay.
And critically, don't forget AI user adoption rates. Track how much the tools are actually being used by the intended teams, because if people aren't using the tool, you haven't solved the problem, you've just bought expensive software.
Right. So pulling it all together, that $254 billion opportunity for Pharma 4.0, it's absolutely real.
It is.
But actually capturing it takes real discipline. It means focusing on that messy, unglamorous foundation of data quality first.
Boring but essential.
Adopting those pharma-native systems
Yeah.
built specifically for regulatory scrutiny.
Yep.
And just relentlessly managing the human side of change, the adoption piece.
That's the recipe. And what's fascinating, when you look at where things go wrong, the most critical failure point often isn't the algorithm or even the initial business case. It's that moment of scaling.
Going from the pilot to the whole enterprise.
Exactly. That chasm between the successful pilot project and rolling it out across the entire organization. It really highlights the need for a phased approach. Maybe start with just one production line or focus on one specific disease area. Prove the benefits conclusively there before you try to go enterprise-wide.
Right. Build credibility step by step.
Yeah. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. If you were leading this transformation, say in a mid-sized pharma company today, and you needed to build that organizational trust, secure future investment, which quick win use case would you prioritize first? Something like demand forecasting or predictive maintenance. Which one gives you that fast, certain, measurable value to get the ball rolling?
That's a good question to ponder. Something to chew on based on your own organization's specific needs and pain points.
Exactly.
Excellent food for thought. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Keep digging, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.